Okay, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to talk about Scratchboard. Scratchboard is just a really fantastic, dare I say, older way of illustrating. Most days now we see illustration done digitally, but Scratchboard, totally a traditional way of doing things, minus the undo button. So there's a certain level of difficulty here that you don't find in digital art. Scratchboard is basically the opposite of pen and ink. So when you're drawing with a pen, the idea is that when you're drawing, you're just eliminating the white. So if I was doing cross hatching here, lots of different directions, I'm creating value or value change by how much light I'm letting show through and we can create a gradient of sorts going from very dark to very light. And that's a more common thing or technique than Scratchboard because pens are everywhere. Scratchboard it requires the same level of commitment where you need to make a line and stick to it as you can erase pen. But this one, you can't certainly put the black back down on to the background. So first, before we get into some examples that I have here for you, let's talk about what makes a good reference. I have a project or a photo that I've taken. Let's see, when my family and I were in Disney World. Some of you may recognize this. This is seen there. I took this picture. It was really quite a dynamic image. And this is just a printout, of course. The reason why this is such a great Scratchboard reference is because the darks just flow into one another, okay? There's no outside edges. You'll hear me talk about that a lot today. Don't outline anything in pen and ink, really, but Scratchboard especially. There's no outlines to anything. The difference, so like some might argue, that line right there, quote unquote line, that is there because there is a change in value between one thing and another thing. There's never a line. We use lines, but we're going to talk about how we do that here in just a second. But your references are best when there's a lot of variation in value. Okay, the value being the difference between light and dark, and letting that black areas, those black and dark areas, just fade into the background. And I have some student work that I'll show you here in just a second that exemplify that. So we'll go back and forth from this reference today. Equally so, bad images or less ideal are just really hard silhouettes of 100% white and 100% black. Certainly it's something that you could do, but for a more academic standard, we want some variation in gray. Okay, let's talk about tools. Basically, you've got a tool just like this. And this tool is really, sometimes they can be quite sharp, but really you just need kind of an edge on there. And these tools, they work good. We have a little pen handle or pen holder here, and we use the same thing for like pen and ink. You can just stick it in there. It doesn't have to, be too tight. Just stick it in so it's good. All right, let's talk about techniques now. The first technique that you want to be aware of is just simple line spacing. And if your tool is sharp, with light pressure, just putting lines down and gradually spacing them out allows you to, just like I said at the beginning, where it's like Scratchboard is opposite of pen and ink. Instead of eliminating the white of the paper, you're exposing the white to create a highlight and having it fade to dark. Cross hatching, very similar. And the lighter the pressure I go, the more fine a line I get. But as I go another direction, the lighter it gets, as I'm eliminating the black. And this dark ink that is the dark that you're eliminating, sometimes, well, as you do this, the more you take off, the more shavings, as you are removing material. I want you to see this. This right here is dried ink. If you just use your hand and scrape it away, you can embed, if you've scratched actually scratched the whiteboard behind, almost like you've damaged it by pushing too hard, can put some of this stuff back into those scratches and it doesn't come clean. So if you want nice clean white surfaces, just getting a brush like this, using it as a broom, okay, really nice. Any sort of brush. I hesitate using, like if I blow on it with my air, you can run the risk of accidentally, as strange as it sounds, spitting on it, and then you get it all wet and then it's a mess. So I like to use a brush. And as you do this, transitioning from perfectly clean white paper here to just a little percentage of gray, that's going to be one of the more challenging transitions. And the more patient you are with this, the smoother it will be. It can be really quite nice. You can use patterns. If I start with just a few lines here, and then and see, I'm just doing like one less line here. When you're doing this, you don't have to just do, this is just a generic gradient. But you don't have to transition like I'm doing. But again, all we're doing here is just fading from light to dark. So if I zoom out on that, you can kind of see where we've been. Now, let's talk about how you get your artwork. So we're back to my reference here. From your reference to your Scratchboard. When I was in high school, they just gave us a pen, or a pencil, excuse me, and they said, draw on the Scratchboard. And that's less than ideal because Scratchboard surface is so fragile. So what I've learned to do is simply get a piece of paper that is the right size, or the same size as your Scratchboard itself. Okay, here's mine. And also be careful when you handle it. It will eventually show up all your fingerprints and it will damage the surface of the page. So make sure to grab by the back, by the edges. Try not to put too many fingerprints here. So what I've done here, I've drawn this a little bit differently than how you would maybe draw something like this with details. I'm looking more for the shapes, or the outside shapes of our areas of value. So like here, I just made a shape around where all of these marks are going to go. I'm not worried about the detail itself. So I've just made some landmarks of where things might be. And once I've got my drawing on my paper, this is where you make all your corrections, where you make all your mistakes, you get everything where you want it, and then what we do, take your Scratchboard and your rough draft drawing, line it up just like this, and then you get some tape and tape it in a very specific way. Now I want you to use my tape. This is artist tape. Okay, it's on my desk. This is, so the tape that the district offices give us is like 50 cents a roll. This stuff is incredibly sticky and it will damage your artwork. Okay, this is artist tape. It's like $10, $12 a roll, so don't waste it. But I want you to use it. It's repositionable. Kind of like painter's tape, only for artists. Okay, and we just need 2 little pieces, inch or so long, okay? And take your draft, and I'm going to line it up with the top here because that's what I'm used to. And we're going to run this tape on the surface here and then around the back like that. So it's not touching any of the dark or black surface of the Scratchboard. Just like that. Now I have, it's kind of a hinge. The tape is working like this. This does 2 things. It protects the surface of your Scratchboard while you're working on it, and it makes it so that the paper on top is stationary on top. So now we get a cheap ballpoint pen. And here in this moment, it's not about ink, it's about pressure. Now, I don't want you to push so hard that you make the desk feel bad, but you need to have some level of pressure, just medium, I guess. And all you're doing is just tracing over your pencil line like this. And what's happening is, without making a mark in the Scratchboard, you are leaving a little bit of an indent. And that is what you need. And this is just more of a suggestion. what I mean by suggestion is the mark on the other side. This is just to give you an idea of where some of your marks are going to be. You don't have to stick with them, okay? So this is just little reflections in the water. And I could go over this whole thing. I'm not going to for the sake of the demo. But basically, let's just work on this water down here. So we've got that shape pretty well done. And so now, if I go this way, fold that behind, I'm going to try to see if I can get the video. Okay, the light, you can see that little bit of an indent right there. That is what we're after. Get your scratch tool. Got my reference here. And this is super important. Don't outline anything. I've said that before, I'm gonna say it again. You're gonna get tired of me saying it. Don't outline anything. There's no outlines. So what do you do first? I would start with the lightest area first, right here. And only go about half as light as you think you should go for now, okay? We'll do half as light as this is. We'll fade to the darker parts, and then we'll go back and brighten the highlights. This approach makes it so that you don't get too carried away, because this is fun, okay? Scratching this off, it's really nice. And then what happens is if we don't get too carried away, we stay in control. All right, so here we go. And I will try not to move it around a whole bunch. Our line direction is horizontal because we've got these you know, the texture of the water. So here we go. And I'm working right here where I'm staying inside that little indent. Make sure you don't push too hard. We want it to be hidden. I'm gonna keep working like this. Now I know that to create depth here, I want a little less detail here and a little more detail here, and that creates kind of a you know, further away because details are smaller and bigger details up here. Now I don't want to go super light. I'll come back over here. Now as I start to need different textures, I'm going to change up my technique, and anything that's kind of dark like those details I want to maintain, and so I can just bring that down and just kind of mark in where those are going to be. And any place where it's dark, you need to leave it alone. And any place where it's a little lighter, definitely need to remove more. and I just keep going with that. Let me show you some examples of some successful Scratchboard work that students have done. This is old school because I just don't have time to do all the editing, so we've got some printouts for us. And you can see something that's really cool about this one is wherever there's a dark line, that means that that was left there. So that's why this one is particularly impressive. Okay, here's another one. Dark lines again. You can pause these if you want to look at them a little bit more. This is really nice. Took some time. I will point out, if you are going to sign your work, don't do it this way. Okay? No shame to the person that did this, but that sticks out really quite a lot. Hide it a little better than that. You don't want to isolate it like that. Okay. Another one. This one really technically very, very clean. Old school car, you know, bumper, tail light. It's real nice. And if we go back to our reference here, I had a student use it as a reference. Turned out really pretty nice. Just like that. Anyway, right there, Scratchboard for you. Good luck.